welcome to this week's edition of The Week That Was, where we review the top content as published on whatelectricalnews.com throughout the week. The New South Wales Environment and Protection Authority has criticised AGL for a lack of transparency and launched a full investigation after the energy giant disclosed it had detected banned BTEX chemicals in water samples taken at its pilot coal seam gas field in the state's mid-north. AGL copped a rebuke by the EPA on Tuesday, hours after the company announced it had suspended operations following the detection of the toxic chemicals in water from 2 of its 4 CSG wells and an above-ground water storage tank. AGL noticed the elevated levels of BTEX chemicals on the 15th of January, but it did not make these results known to the EPA or the public until Monday the 26th of January. The EPA is now very concerned at AGL's lack of timeliness and transparency in informing them of these results and will be conducting a full investigation. Mining magnate Clive Palmer has paid back the allegedly siphoned $12.16 million in Chinese cash, it was revealed in court on Tuesday. Sino Iron has been suing Mr. Palmer through the Supreme Court of Queensland, alleging he fraudulently and dishonestly took $12.16 million from a bank account meant for managing a port in the mining joint venture, directing it to the Palmer United Party and its advertising. Mr. Palmer has denied any wrongdoing. Australia's 2 biggest science and weather bodies, CSIRO and the Bureau of Meteorology, have released new climate change data and information on how it will affect Australia. The projections are the most comprehensive ever released for Australia, and renowned science expert Dr. Karl says they're only just the tip of the iceberg. According to the CSIRO report, in Australia specifically, oceans will become much warmer and more acidic. Cyclones will decrease, but when they do occur, they will be significantly fiercer and occur further south. Droughts will become more intense and severe bushfire ratings will become more common. Water temperatures will also continue to rise, which means storms can suck up more moisture, resulting in heavier rain and snowfall. Dr. Karl said that if we move to a renewable economy, it could take around 10 years to build, and over the next 30 years our overall energy costs would be much lower. The problem, of course, is that with one government starting it, we will need to have another one that will finish it. BHP Billiton Olympic Dam may be forced to cut more jobs as it looks to further reduce costs as external factors continue to challenge the mining heavyweight. The copper price continues to fall as it reaches the lowest levels in almost 6 years, forcing BHP Billiton to further look at cash flow reductions. BHP Billiton Olympic Dam expects to finish its review next month with the possibility of job losses. Salaries for white-collar workers will fail to keep pace with inflation as pay rises become less generous in the resources sector. Economists are expecting inflation to moderate, but wages will continue to rise at a slower pace. The slowdown within the resources sector and in Western Australia in particular would continue to weigh down the average salary increases of professionals. Inflation figures due this week are expected to be among the lowest in 3 years following a halving of oil price during the last 6 months. The Consumer Price Index, the key measure of inflation, is forecast to have risen 0.2% in the December quarter for an annual rate of 1.8%. Bill Gates has a warning for humanity: be aware of artificial intelligence in the coming decades before it's too late. Microsoft's co-founder joins a list of science and industry notables including famed physicist Stephen Hawking and internet innovator Elon Musk in calling out the potential threat from machines that can think for themselves. Gates shared his thoughts on AI on Wednesday in a Read It, Ask Me Anything thread, a Q&A session conducted live on the social news site that was also featuring President Barack Obama and World Wide Web founder Tim Berners-Lee. Musk, the billionaire inventor and founder of SpaceX and CEO of electric car maker Tesla Motors, is not an expert in AI, but he did join a growing list of hundreds of researchers and professors in the field who signed an open letter earlier this month that proposed proper safeguards to be put in place to research and develop such intelligence without humans losing control. Musk in October called AI development summoning the demon and has invested in the space to keep his eye on it. Hawking, writing for The Independent in May 2014, also expressed his concerns, writing, "Whereas the short-term impact of AI depends on who controls it, the long-term impact depends on whether it can be controlled at all." Mount Gibson Iron has warned of a big non-cash impairment of $850 to $950 million in the first half profit result. The huge hit is mainly attributable to its Koolan Island project, which ceased operations suddenly late last year after a pit wall collapse allowed seawater to flood the mine. The company is also likely to take a knife to the value of its other assets given the tumbling iron ore price. It said the $850 to $950 million hit did not include a separate, previously flagged non-cash write-off of a $46 million deferred tax asset related to the repealed mining minerals resource rent tax. The Northwest Shelf Gas Consortium, which includes Australia's Woodside Petroleum and BHP Billiton, is facing allegations that had delayed gas shipments in a bid to negotiate a higher price for a 25-year contract that it signed back in 2002. A source from where the shipments arrive into China said that 8 shipments had not arrived since 2011 and said an official document showed the Chinese buyers believe the joint venture is pursuing withholding tactics to initiate price redetermination. Senior Liberal Party leaders, as well as building industry lobby groups, have stepped up their attack on what they say is an increasing level of unlawful activity by union officials on construction sites and have renewed calls for the reinstatement of the Australian Building and Construction Commission. Following federal court findings earlier this month of illegal conduct by CFMEU and 10 of its current and former officers on 4 construction sites in Adelaide, Liberal Party Minister for Employment Senator Eric Albides said the abolition of the BCC had seen the resumption of a disregard of the law that defined the industry in Victoria and Western Australia and spread to other states including South Australia, Queensland and New South Wales. The latest calls come amid what Conservative politicians and industry groups consider to be growing evidence of illegal behaviour by senior officials of the union. In its interim report handed down last month, the Royal Commission into Trade Union Governments and Corruption described a persuasive and unhealthy culture within the union and recommended the Director of Public Prosecutions consider criminal charges against the union for intimidation and coercion, and that prosecution be considered against union officials for various other matters. A workman has saved a pal from an electrocution by hitting him with a plank of wood. Mark Bradley, 50, was struck by a reported 11,000-volt shock when a metal lamppost he was installing hit overhead power cables. Ade Savage desperately tried to free him by pulling and punching him, but also suffered shocks himself, so he grabbed a nearby plank and hit Mark until he broke the grip of the current. Mark, a dad of 1 from the UK, was taken to hospital with burns to his face and arms and blood coming from his ears. An investigation has now been launched. Now for some history. A fried transatlantic telegraph cable was what sparked the birth of the electrical engineering profession as we know it. The work of paper baron Cyrus Westfield on a cable connecting Newfoundland and Ireland in the mid-1800s inadvertently turned electrical engineering from an amateur hobby to a full-on profession. It was Fields' failure with his first big effort that spawned the unexpected success. The 1857 cable was only an inch in diameter and performed horribly on its mission of delivering only 1 to 2 words a minute for $10 per word. To improve the connection, the chief electrician of the project, E.O. Wildman Whitehouse, increased voltage across the 3,000-kilometre line until at 1,500 volts it was fried. A scandal followed in which the public thought the cable and Mr. Fields were frauds. A British commission investigated the failure and put inventor William Thomas in charge of a second effort and called for standards in what had been known as the electric arts, where there were no metrics or degree programs. Thomas led the design of a better, thicker cable that ultimately carried 8 to 10 words per minute, still at a whopping price of $10 per word. The freakishly brilliant Thomas developed a highly sensitive receiver for the cable and even invented what was effectively the first equalizer for it. The CFMEU claims hundreds of central Queensland miners will be locked out of work at a soon-to-be reopened Norwich Park mine site. The union yesterday said BHP Mitsubishi Alliance was looking to source 340 cheaper workers from interstate for the mine, a move that would also drive down prices and wages at other operations. The company yesterday issued a statement in response to the union claims which read, "In April 2012, BMA announced the cessation of production at Norwich Park mine site, and recommencement of production would be subject to circumstances including an assessment of short and long-term operations," the statement read. CFMEU Mining and Energy General Secretary Andrew Vickers said it was clear BHP had closed its Norwich Park mine as part of an industrial strategy to slash wages and deny jobs to local workers. It is of no coincidence that BHP is now planning to reopen the mine exactly 3 years after closing it to avoid legal requirements to hire back the local workers it ruthlessly dumped, he said. Engineers at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California, are developing a small solar-powered helicopter to act as an added set of eyes for future Mars rover missions. The Mars helicopter could potentially triple the distance rovers currently cover in a Martian day, peering over obstacles and also assisting mission control back on Earth to plan the best driving routes, plus spot potential exploration and sample collection opportunities. The box-like craft will likely weigh around 1 kilogram and measure 3.6 feet between blade tips. The blades of the Mars helicopter will need to spin at about 2,400 RPM to provide enough lift, and the vehicle will be designed to fly for 2 to 3 minutes each day, which is enough to cover around half a kilometre. In between flights, a solar panel situated on top of the rotor hub will recharge the batteries. And that's it for this week's edition of The Week That Was.